Good evening. This is Jeffrey Blake with FlopTurnRiver.com. Recording I'm just showing you one table of 1-2. I've got another one going that I'll pull over if anything interesting happens. But for right now, we're just going to focus on one table. Actually, if anyone would like to comment on whether they'd rather see multiple tables going or just the one, I would be perfectly happy to take your opinions and factor that into future videos. So I'll try to have a post corresponding to this sometime or something, or you can private message me, Jeffrey JeffreyGB, and just let me know. Anyway, you can see there are a bunch of numbers on the screen. Give us some statistics about the types of people we're playing, and I'll reference those if and when they affect any decisions I make. We've got a decent position at the table. We've got two of the looser players to our right, two of the tighter players to our left. So it hopefully should turn out to be a pretty decent session for us if we can get anything going whatsoever. It hasn't been a lot that happened since I sat down at the table. You basically just missed one orbit. Obviously, from under the gun at Queen 4 is an easy fold. I can't really think of a position that I would play that from, to tell you the truth. And suited or not suited does not matter there. Suitedness doesn't really add a whole lot of value to your hand. I know we all like suited connectors, but that's because there's more to them suited. You can hit multiple ways, but for just an individual hand, being out of position there too. Clearly, we're not going to play a 6-4 out of position against a raise. It doesn't matter that we have the money in. It's just not worth the play. Now here with the 8-7 suited, I'll go ahead and call. It's kind of marginal because, again, we're going to be out of position, but we are getting 5-1 on our money there pre-flop, so it's not costing us much, and we do have the implied odds to make a pretty big hand, especially against one of the looser players at the table. But we don't hit, so we're going to go ahead and just check fold. There's no reason to try to make a stab at this pot. We don't know enough about either player to know if we can get them to lay down, and it's really not likely to be worth it to try. I'm going to try to split this video. Actually, it'll be two videos. I'm going to try to split it into two related sessions. The first one, I'm really going to be playing, just pretty straightforward. And then the second video, I'm going to actually try to the extent that it seems like the thing to do at the time, make use of any reads I can pick up and that sort of thing. And I'm not saying that I'm just going to play completely, card oriented, completely by the cards for that first half an hour, but for the most part I will. Like I said, against two players here, we're just too likely that one of them is going to have something that can beat us. There's no reason to take a stab anywhere in that hand. It's just not a good spot. Now we have an ace-jack offsuit on the button. I cannot imagine any reason to not raise when that's folded to us. We'll probably end up just taking down the blinds, but that's okay. Something else that's kind of ace-king. With this guy having a deep stack, that could potentially be a good thing too. We are going to go ahead and re-raise with the ace-king. Carl seems to like this min-raise pre-flop. He's done that a couple of times now. I don't know if it means anything or if that's just his standard betting amount, but it definitely gives us odds to call at times. And this flop, it has a flush draw. It has a decent amount of straight potential. Honestly, it hits way too many hands that people can be calling with. I'm just going to check behind and hope that we hit one of our 10 outs. We don't. Looks a little bit less likely that he has a jack now. We'll see what he does and go from there. He bets $23. I forgot that we had... I'm going to go ahead and raise him here. Make it look like we were trying to slow play. He calls and we do not hit on the river. And he checks to us. Well, I think we're going to just have to check behind. We can't beat anything, and I think he's calling a lot. It was a mistake not to bet the flop. And he had kings. Yeah, he was not going anywhere. We really should have bet that flop to find out a little bit more about where we're at. Okay, got a hand at this table. It was folded. It was limped to me on the button, and I raised pre-flop. I hit my set on the flop. I'm gonna go ahead and raise this guy up. Just a little bit of. Guess it didn't work out. A little bit of history, I guess. He had seen me in the past actually really kind of overplay a draw into a hand where he had aces. So I was hoping that he would put me on a draw there and pay me off. It didn't work though. Go ahead and reload. We lost $75, but that's no biggie. I wouldn't be surprised at all for Carl to give us, or Cal, I guess, to give that back to us, and then some. I started to make a note that he min-raised with his kings, but there was another hand, I don't think that you were here for it, where he actually min-raised with what I assume is just a random hand. I hit a pair of nines on the flop and took it away from him. So I don't think that min-raise meant anything. I think it's just a standard bet. I'll note that. With the pocket deuces here, we're just gonna go ahead and see the flop. Hopefully we can hit a set and make some money. But we didn't. And there's no reason to get fancy. We'll just go ahead and let it go. I'm assuming that we're gonna get some action here. We didn't, which we don't mind either, but we're still not gonna get out of line. Something that some better players than I have said repeatedly is that 95% of poker is just playing, straightforward by the book. Players checking twice. I'm going to go ahead this time and actually take a stab and see what happens. If we get re-raised, we'll let it go, but we may take it down without going to showdown. Didn't work out. Kind of surprised that he went that far without betting, but that's why we should have just checked it down. Small mistake there. Alright, I have another interesting hand at this table. Pre-flop I just completed in the blind. We'll fold our 4-8. And then we hit trips on the flop. And I let out for it, and our opponent re-raised, so that's good for us. Here, I'm going to make a small value bet, and hopefully he'll try to take us off the hand by shoving. Of course, here we're going to just have to put him all in. Oh, we were both kind of playing each other. Well, that's unfortunate, but there was no way that was going to end up any other way once that flop came down. With the ace-king suited, we will certainly raise. The standard preflop raise that I use on full tilt has always been about 3.5 times the big blind, just because, well, for one, it's easy to make the raise that amount. Okay, we have a kind of interesting situation here. We do have ace-king suited. We have not been 3-bet at all by this player, and he's actually, if you look at his statistics here, he's only raising 7.5% of his hands normally. I have to believe that he's not actually doing that with the wide, a super wide range. So what I want to do is go ahead and just check and see if we can outdraw a pair. If he's got jacks or queens, if we can outdraw them on the flop, then I'm going to go ahead and just call to see if we can hit that flop and beat him on it. It's possible that he has a set of kings. It's possible he has a set of tens. And I guess it's possible he could have aces too. I think we very much have to go with this flop. So wish us luck. We may even be splitting with. That's another unfortunate result for us. Okay. I stand behind my thinking there because I think that I think we can call pre-flop. I think our hand is big enough and we'll be able to evaluate post-flop. I also think if we do anything other than just call pre-flop, then we're going to be only getting action from hands that we beat. That's actually a big part of my game, is making sure that you're not putting money in a situation where the only way that you can be getting anything like any playback is with the hand that you beat, unless you have a hand that can't win on value alone. And I think we can win even against his re-raising range on value there quite often. If we had 4-bet, we would have taken it down. I suppose instead of losing a coin flip for his stack, we would have ended up winning the pot as it stood at that point. But I can't really claim that that's necessarily a huge improvement. With the queen deuce, there's no reason to do anything but see if we can hit a flop. So that's what we're doing. We didn't hit. There's 4 people on the hand. We're certainly not going any further with it unless they let us check and get a nice free card. That free card was not good for us. It didn't hurt us, but we didn't have anything to begin with. So I'm just going to go ahead and let it go. And, even on that river, we can't really know where we're at. Someone could have a set. I guess none of this really came in, but there are a lot of ways that we could be beat there. The 10-3 from the small blind. We wouldn't even be completing if it were folded to us. We're certainly not going to overcall, and it's been raised and called twice. course we would have missed. With a queen 3 suited or not isn't really even strong enough to try to take the blinds. It's also worth noting that we have a new player in the big blind now, and he's a short stack. A lot of times short stack players tend to want to just come in and gamble. So that's not a player that we were going to want to be stealing from a whole lot. And sure enough, it looks like that may be the type of player that we're looking at here. We're going to want to factor that into our decisions when we're raising and he's in the blinds. That we're likely to be playing for his whole stack, at least until he gets a few more chips, or until he goes broke. And indeed, that may happen now. His play was reasonable there too, but that's what happens with short stacks a lot. Like I said, they gamble. He lost the gamble. For my part, I'd prefer to take... he didn't leave, though. He reloaded for 20 big blinds. That's interesting. We'll have to just continue to approach him with a little bit of caution. That's going to force us to kind of increase the range of hands we're looking for to make moves on the button. Although he did have a legitimate hand there, so we'll have to see. He could be one of the types of players that's actually a rather tight short stack. There's no way to know yet. Alright, we've got a pair of 8s under the gun here. I'm definitely raising that. I'm going to raise that pretty much from any position, pretty much all of the time. And we took it down. So that's a decent result. Here we've got Queen Jack against a min raise, and we're in the big blind. So we're getting to a total of 4-1 on the call, but we're going to be out of position. We're also against the player that has the really tight range again. 4-1 on the call is a decent. It's decent pot odds for the call there, but I don't think our hand is strong enough to call there. It's really close. I'm probably erring a little bit on the tight side even, but I'd just rather be able to lead the hand. I don't like being out of position there. I definitely call or even re-raise from in position. That, again, just a garbage hand against a raise. You're not doing anything. Offsuit connector, out of position, not a good hand. Position is a huge thing in poker. It's a very big factor. So we want to keep it in mind at all points. With 8 deuce against short stack player, I'm not going to try anything fancy by any means whatsoever. And we've got a 10-7 on the cutoff. That's not that great a hand by any means either. 10-7 suited, even with a 10-8 suited is kind of my cutoff, or an actual suited connector. I guess I should say suited one gappers are pretty much where I kind of draw my positional raising line. I'm tightening that up a little bit because, again, of this guy. we don't want to be playing back at that type of player a lot, and I think we're going to be. 7-4 under the gun. That's certainly not an exciting prospect. We'll definitely let that go as well. Something that can be interesting if you do it long enough and are actually impartial about it is to watch the number of times that when you fold trash hands for little bits of money, the amount of times that you would have made a hand versus not, because the reason that hands are trash hands are because, well, they're trash. They don't give you the best hand that often. We all remember the time that we folded our 8 deuce and then the flop came 8-8 deuce. But it doesn't happen often. And if we, actually pay attention and look at it and say, oh, well, the last 30 times that I folded 8 deuce, I would have lost money, and that one time, I would have only made the blinds anyway because nobody else had anything. So I would have lost a lot of money playing 8 deuce there. If we can be objective and see that, it can be a very good thing for us. Here again, we're facing a min raise. This time we're against a player that's playing a lot more cards. I'm going to go ahead and call here and just evaluate post flop. Really, it's iffy, but we know we can get this guy's stack, and we can get some chips from him certainly too. I'm going to try to check raise because I think that one of the two of them is likely to do something. Sure enough, the short stack player does go for it. And we get a fold. I'm gonna raise like I intended. Okay, here we've got pocket threes in the small blind, and our short stack player has basically shoved all in. We've got a call from a deeper stack player. I was going to fold actually to the short stack, but I'll call here to try to hit a set against Cal. I don't know how well he would be able to get away from it post flop, so hopefully we can make something. We didn't. I'm just going to check. I think I have to call if just the short stack pushes, though. But hopefully Cal will do something as well. He called too. That's actually good for us. We can try to hit a card and improve. We didn't. That's okay. And we didn't make our hand. Yep, that's alright. That's a big part of the reason that I didn't really want to play against the short stack. But for the $2 that he had less, there's no way we can fold. He has an ace king that missed the board there often enough to call $2 post flop. Especially if we're getting any kind of implied odds from Cal, and I think we might have been able to get a little bit more out of him if he had anything at all. That's an interesting turn of events. I'm not sure. I I didn't actually see the action pre-flop. We're gonna fold a king 4. Okay, I'm sure you saw it, so I don't need to tell you, but pre-flop Avanto made a raise and Mechanic called with a horrible calling hand if you're short stack. The shorter your stack, the worse it is it is to play hands like ace rag. Unless you're in a tournament, there's a need to get all in pre-flop. When you've got the type of hand that he had, you're getting action from the hands that beat you almost always because they can't lay down, and you're not, they can't lay down for the amount that you can put in, and you're not going to get. Well, there just aren't enough hands that you beat, really. Even if you're beating a hand, you're not beating it very well. So you're either dominated or you're very slightly ahead. You can't push those small edges when you have no other way to make the other player get out of the hand, because it's not going to be profitable. I actually started out playing where I would buy into tables short stacked and then actually make a hand and double up a few times. And that was how my game started back in 2004. But I've since moved on. And when I did it, I certainly didn't play hands like that ever. I was looking to actually have the best of it because I knew people would call me light. You don't want to have a weak hand and have people calling you light. Here we're going to just check. The more hands we can get against the big stack, the better we feel. We are going to bet our flush draw here. And, I don't mind really anything he does there. If he comes over the top, I have to worry a little bit that he has the ace, but I'm not even that worried about that, because I think most of the time he is going to go ahead and raise there pre-flop when he has the ace. Again, marginal hand with the short, although not quite as short, stack player, and here we've got position, and we're definitely going to go with this, with the ace-9. I'm saying this. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. I don't like that flop, however. There are a lot of hands in his calling range that include a queen or a jack. I'm not going to try to fight him for the pot. The 7-8 suited, I would actually raise this a decent amount of the time, if not for the fact that the blinds we're playing against are both extremely loose players, so we don't get a lot of value out of it. Here we've got a 5-4 under the gun. Another one of those situations. The hand that you're given and the position you've got it in is just not going to be worth playing. I'm gonna pull up this other table. I've got ace king in the blinds. And I'm going to re-raise, and we'll evaluate. We got called, and we hit our top pair. It's pretty standard, I think, to bet any flop when you've re-raised pre-flop. Our opponent just folds. Okay. And accidentally caused myself to min raise under the gun with the king 5. That's interesting. I'll have to see what happens and decide how to play it from there. I guess that's one downside to the table setup I'm using, is that that type of thing can happen. Okay, we've got ace jack suited against the players of this table. I expect we're going to be re-raising pre-flop. This isn't a hand that we really want to play out of position. And it's a hand, I could actually do some calculation and decide. I'm not sure whether equity-wise it plays best to go ahead and see the flop four-handed there, or to just try to get heads up. Certainly if we can get folds from the two people that would be in position, then that would be great. But we don't. However, we get a reasonable flop. And we get the fold that we're kind of hoping for. That was a pretty decent result for us. We've got pocket fours in the small blind. Here we're happy to go ahead out of position and just see this cheap flop. There's nothing we're gonna do there whatsoever. We get a bet. I'm sorry for the silence there. I was involved in kind of a big hand at another table, but not one that was important enough to drag over. We get a bet and a raise and a re-raise. All the more reason to be done with the hand, huh? I wouldn't be surprised. Well, I would be surprised if Cal doesn't get a call from at least one of the players. I'd also be surprised if Mechanic is even remotely good against Cal's hand, because, well, quite frankly, of the two, they're both playing a lot of hands, but Cal seems to have a bit more of a clue about what's going on. And while they're thinking, hands that really should or shouldn't be making plays like this, he raises, he re-raises. We don't necessarily have any reason to put this player. He's been very, very aggressive at every chance he's given. We have no reason to necessarily put him on a flush. So I think it's certainly valid to re-raise him with, a pair and a flush draw, for instance. Cal had the flush, and he thought, like we did, that this player could be making, and that this guy would know that. So I don't think Cal's play was that horrible there either. Here with our ace-4 suited, facing a raise and a call, I'm just going to let it go, because we're not going to get either of those players off of their hand often enough for that to work out in our benefit. And here again, we would have totally missed the flop. So, going back to what I was saying, we definitely are happy with the fact that we let this go. Alrighty. I'm actually going to go ahead and start winding this video up. An ace-9, it's really marginal. We're going to be in position, but I'm going to let it go. And I'll be back. Well, I'll wait until we get to the point that we're going into the blinds. When we're in earlier position, we can think about things a little bit more. Or with a king 6, even if there had not been a raise, we wouldn't be playing it. Yeah, I'm actually going to go ahead and stop the video. Things are going slow enough that we may be able to start the next one with missing a minimal number of hands. We'll have to. I'll bring you back as soon as I can.